Hello everyone, and welcome to our Excel VBA tutorial series. In this video, we're going to demystify if, then, else statements in Excel VBA, a crucial aspect of programming logic. Before we start, ensure you've enabled the Developer tab. Don't remember how? Just check out the first video in our series. Once you've done that, let's dive into today's topic. In programming, conditionals are fundamental. They allow our code to make decisions and execute different instructions based on certain conditions. The most basic conditional structure in VBA is the if-then statement. Before we get to the example, let's first open the VBA editor to start writing our code. If you recall from our previous videos, you can open the VBA editor by clicking on the Developer tab and then on Visual Basic, or you can simply use the keyboard shortcut Alt plus F11. Now that we're in our VBA environment, let's take a look at a simple example. Let's start writing our code. We'll begin by declaring our subprocedure, which we'll name checkValue. Remember, this is the name we'll use when we want to run this macro. We'll begin the body of our subprocedure on a new line. Next, we type if, then range A1, value greater than 10. What we're saying here is if the value in cell A1 is greater than 10, then we want to do something. That something is going to be displaying a message box. On the next line, we'll use the MsgBox function, which allows us to display a pop-up box with a message. In the brackets, we'll include the message we want to display. In this case, the value is greater than 10. We have just completed the if part of our if-then statement. Notice that we've not included an else statement yet. That's because for this example we're only interested in the condition where the value in A1 is greater than 10. Finally, we need to close the if statement. We do this with end if on a new line. And we finish the procedure with end sub. This line indicates the end of the macro. And there you have it. We've written a simple if-then statement that checks if the value in cell A1 is greater than 10 and displays a message if this condition is true. After explaining the code, it's time to see it in action. Let's head back to our Excel worksheet and input a value in cell A1. First, we'll try with a number greater than 10. Then we'll run our macro. To do this, we'll go to Macros in the Developer tab, select our macro named checkValue, and hit Run. As you can see, a message box pops up saying, the value is greater than 10. This confirms that our if condition is working correctly. Now let's test it with a number less than 10. Let's go back to our Excel sheet and change the value in cell A1 to 5. When we run our macro again, this time, no message box should appear as the condition range A1 value greater than 10 is not met. And voila! We've successfully tested our simple if-then statement in VBA. It correctly checks the value in cell A1 and takes action based on whether the value is greater than 10. Now, what if we want to provide an alternative path when our condition isn't met? That's where the else statement comes in. Let's modify our code. Firstly, I'm going to add a new line right after our first MsgBox line. It's here that we're going to introduce the else keyword. This keyword tells VBA, hey, if that first condition I told you about isn't met, here's what I want you to do instead. Now in the line right after else, I'm going to add another MsgBox function. But this time, it's going to display a different message. The value is less than or equal to 10. Why this message? Well, if the value in cell A1 isn't greater than 10, it means it's either less than or equal to 10, right? So, we want to communicate this to the user. So, let's type this in. I'm writing MsgBox, then in quotes, the value is less than or equal to 10. And there we have it. We have successfully incorporated the else statement into our code. It might seem like a small change, but it adds a great deal of flexibility to our macro. So, just to recap, if the value in cell A1 is greater than 10, one message will be displayed. If it's not, a different message will be shown. Let's see how it works by running our updated macro. First, I'm heading back to my Excel sheet. For our first test, let's place a value greater than 10 in cell A1. How about 15? I'm entering 15 into cell A1. Now let's go back to our VBA editor and run our macro. Now as I hit run, watch closely to what happens. Did you see that? Our message box popped up and it says, the value is greater than 10. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Now let's test the else part of our code. I'm replacing the 15 in cell A1 with, let's say 5, which is clearly less than 10. Now we'll run our macro again. And there we have it. The message box now shows the value is less than or equal to 10. Perfect. That's exactly what we expected. This is the beauty of the if, then, else statement. It allows our code to respond dynamically to different situations. Excellent. We've seen the power of if and else in action. Now let's take it one step further. What if we have more than 2 possible conditions to check for? This is where ElseIf comes into play. Let's see how we can use it. So, imagine we have 3 different conditions for the value in cell A1. First, if it's less than or equal to 10. Second, if it's greater than 10 but less than or equal to 20. And third, if it's greater than 20. We'll use ElseIf to handle these additional conditions. Here's what our modified code looks like. Here's what's happening. If the first condition is met, meaning the value in A1 is less than or equal to 10, the first message is displayed. If it isn't, then the macro checks the next condition, meaning if the value is less than or equal to 20. If this condition is met, the second message is displayed. If neither of the first 2 conditions is met, then the final else statement comes into play and the last message is displayed. This is a simple but powerful way to handle multiple conditions within your VBA code. Let's put it to the test, shall we? First, let's put a value of 9 in cell A1, and then run our macro. As expected, the message, the value is less than or equal to 10, pops up. This is because 9 is less than or equal to 10. Next, let's change the value in cell A1 to 15 and run our macro again. This time, the message, the value is greater than 10 but less than or equal to 20, is displayed. Again, this is as expected since 15 is more than 10 but less than or equal to 20. Finally, let's put 25 in cell A1 and run our macro once more. The message, the value is greater than 20, shows up, as anticipated, since 25 is greater than 20. So you can see how our if, then, ElseIf, else structure provides different responses depending on the value in cell A1. That's the power of conditional programming in VBA. You can now create dynamic responses to a variety of situations in your Excel spreadsheets. And there we have it. We've navigated the intricacies of if, then, else statements in VBA, explored how to manage multiple conditions, and dipped our toes into the world of decision-making in coding. But remember, this is just the beginning. In our next video, we will journey further and dig deeper into the world of complex condition construction using logical operators like and, or. Not only that, we'll bring the concept to life by working through some real-world examples of if, then, else statements in VBA code. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? As with any skill, coding demands practice, exploration, and sometimes a little bit of trial and error. So don't just sit back. Start writing your own if, then, else statements, try out different conditions, and see what you can create. And if you stumble upon any hurdles or if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'm here to help. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, keep coding, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy coding.